CFL Week 2, it's the betting blueprint. We are live on X, Facebook, posted right afterwards to Wager Talk TV. Andrew McInnis, Bobby Dubeau with you to go over CFL Week 2, our picks, predictions, thoughts on the line movement, and much, much more. Week 2, usually known as Overreaction Week across most football leagues. So we'll see what we thought about Week 1 and dive into Week 2. Bobby, what a place for you to be for Week 1 as you were in Sin City, Las Vegas, seeing a concert. But I would say that you were there just to lock in a couple CFL bets, but that would not be the truth. How was your Week 1?
It was a great week one. It was definitely a great week one. I'm not going to say I told you so on any of these things because that's not what we're doing here. Like I picked three outcomes I thought had a good probability of happening, and they went to script, all three of them. So they don't always do that, but we're playing the probabilities, right? So 3-0 week for me. Yes. Was there a moment when I'm sitting in the Circus Sports book and I could statistically say I'm the best, I'm the greatest CFL bettor in the world? Yes. But today we're on to Cincinnati. We're on to week 2. To just stick to the useful information. And I said this same sort of thing last week. If you want to listen to people who are shocked about things like the Redblacks getting in their own way, or Trey Ford not living up to the hype, or a gangster rapper swearing at a pregame concert in BC Place, you can go down to the bar down the street. They'll still be drinking at 2 or 3 in the afternoon. You can hear all that there. You're not going to hear it from us. We can't afford to be shocked about things like that. Can't afford to forget these things that we already know, and we definitely can't afford to be wrong. So looking forward to more of the same on week 2. Keep the streak alive here, and yeah, there is some overreactions, and I think there's even one underreaction we can get to this week for sure.
Yeah, I look forward to it. And hey, look, I do owe you a beer for everybody out there. We talked, made a little side bet on the Hamilton-Calgary game. We'll get into that, and I'm sure there'll be more than one beer bets going on throughout the season. So we'll definitely have our chance to get some revenge on Bobby there. Yeah, we'll get some quick reactions on week 1, but I'll just say 2-2 graded for me. Regular season in week 1 there. Happy I did have those few winners in the preseason. Still year to date having a good run in the CFL, but 2-2. I'll tell you, it's funny that we always talk about the CLV trash can. It doesn't matter if you get CLV if you lose. But the funny thing is, I got pretty good number on Hamilton money line. I got 48.5 on that over in the BC Edmonton game. That closed 49.5, maybe 50 at some spots. But those were the two losers. BC and Saskatchewan. I told you guys, look, not a lot of people will recommend parlays. People talk about how, it might not make sense mathematically. And, I'll tell you what, sometimes in the CFL, you'll catch me doing this. I said it last week on the show. I have a pretty good track record with doing it. You pick a winner, you pick a winner. Saskatchewan and BC, both teams get the job done. And then I had Saskatchewan first half. And I'll tell you what, that Saskatchewan first half, Bobby, that had me sweating because -1.5 there. They go down 7-0. It was about to be 10-0. Ward misses the field goal. The most CFL way ever. We see the returner bring it back to almost the 45-yard line, and just like that, Saskatchewan had themselves a good first half. But I'll throw it to you. We'll try and be quick, but just your overall thoughts on week 1. Again, for the most part, we'll get through our team breakdowns and some thoughts during the actual picks and when we go through week 2. But just overall, your thoughts on week 1.
Like honestly, like I wasn't surprised by much, if anything, and that's pretty rare that happens. But I guess the thing that I guess we could just admit, like we already know what we know, and even when you're talking about the line movement on those lines, like hey, I was definitely on the wrong line, wrong side of the CLV on Calgary there, right? So like Hamilton opened 1.5, and by game day it was 3.5. There were some big movements on these games. A little bit of movement on Tuesdays when the offshores increase their limits, but the big movement is always on game day when the American books, they don't really have that big of limits, but that's when people can get the most money down, and I'm assuming that's when the majority of the money comes in too, because based on all the ads you see on TV here, I don't think it's many sharps betting CFL up in Canada. So most of that line movement is going to come on game day. I predicted the first few where we kind of went in Saskatchewan's favor, Montreal's favor. But I was kind of shocked on that Calgary line ballooning up to more than a field goal, and I was sitting there with a +1.5 like an idiot. So you have your opportunity to jump on the lines now, and then if you think a line is going to move later on in the week, you can kind of see it slowly inching there on Tuesday and Wednesday, and there's usually a big move in that same direction on game day.
You know, at the end of the day, though, too, one thing I said last week, Bobby, and you know, this worked out for you this week or last week, is that sometimes you just got to trust yourself, right? Like, even if you don't end up getting that best of the number, at the end of the day, you were spot on with Calgary. They got the job done. So at the end of the day, are you going to take your win and still just feel mad? Like, oh, well, I won, but I didn't get the right number. We always want to get the right number, but sometimes, like, I always think back to 2 seasons ago, the sharp money or whatever you want to call it was wrong every week. It was like if you were on the same side of the books that where the money was moving, you were dead wrong. So a lot of times, especially in a league like this, it is about trusting yourself. I'll tell you what, Toronto's offensive line had a ton of changes in the offseason. That was very apparent. We saw that. Ottawa's offensive line, we saw Drew Brown take a hit. I ripped apart their offensive line. I feel bad even saying this because it just sounds like a horrible thing to say, but I was saying on Sports Grid, I said on our show, I said that I don't think Drew Brown will make it to week 6 or 7 without an injury. And, you know, week 1 happens and he's banged up. I think we will see him in week 2, but he's banged up. Montreal's defense, that's probably something that will not be an overreaction. I think that's something we can react to and say, you know, they're just right where they were before. And there was a clip that I had there was talking last week about how defense can create points in the CFL. And Montreal, again, I mean, anytime touchdown score props as far as their defense is concerned, defense, special teams might be a bet to continue looking at. You know, Nate Rourke looks sharp after actually getting an offseason, getting a training camp and all that good stuff. And so really interesting to see what happens here with some of these teams. And, you know, there's a lot to look at injury-wise and a lot to look at as far as the point spreads. But let's not waste any time. Let's dive into week number 2 because there's so much we could look at, so much we could go over as far as injuries and such. But we'll just jump into it right now. And looking at the numbers here, BC at Winnipeg. That's the first game we'll talk about here. Home dogs +2.5. The Blue Bombers total being 48.5, slightly shaded towards the over in this one. I know we have our jokes about the power rankings that float around the CFL league here as a whole. I saw a new video get posted, and it actually had Winnipeg number 2. Buck Pierce, he returns to Winnipeg, offensive coordinator, or formerly offensive coordinator of the Bombers, now head coach of BC. What do you make of this number here?
Okay, so right off the bat, I think this is a huge overreaction. We just saw what an overreaction looks like in the Grey Cup, and when the Winnipeg Blue Bombers went in and faced Toronto, who was starting Nick Arbuckle, drop off from Chad Kelly. Well, I think the drop from Kelly to Arbuckle is pretty similar from Collaros to Chris Streveler. Zach Collaros is suspended for this game just because he missed a few calls on a fishing trip for his drug test. So Chris Streveler is going in there. Now, I'm nowhere near like a Chris Streveler fan here. I've called him Tommy Stevens in a fur coat. I bet against him last summer when he was playing Jake Mayer and the terrible Stamps, and the Stamps were able to still cover. But like, I can't downgrade Winnipeg enough to get them to be the underdog here. Like, on a neutral, if you had Zach Collaros playing on a neutral, Winnipeg would be favored, like, no matter what. So you can downgrade from Collaros to Streveler, sure, but you have to kind of add back these intangibles. Like, the Bombers are playing at home. They're the best home field in the CFL. I give a full 3 points for the Bombers, whereas other teams like Calgary, I'm giving like 1. So they claim it's the loudest stadium in the CFL. It's going to be packed for the season opener. The Bombers have an extra week of rest. They didn't play last week, and you've got the Lions, who it's almost noon 2 days before the game, and they're just starting their first practice. They've got one practice this week, then they're going to Winnipeg. You hear about teams who have these short weeks. Last year, they were getting slaughtered going in on Thursday nights. complaining all year. Hey, we're only getting one practice and having to go out. So it's a bad spot. It's hard to kind of get behind. Oh, only they got a short week. That's my handicap. But combine that with everything else, I don't see how you can't still have Winnipeg favored, even with Chris Streveler here. So like the Lions O-line, I was concerned about that to start the year. They played pretty well, but that was against the Elks. I'm still concerned about them. Like going up against Winnipeg, right? So, like I'm happy to fade Winnipeg when the opportunity presents itself. We were fading Winnipeg at the start of last year, and then we jumped on the Bombers right when everybody else jumped off. So, I feel like I've got a pretty good read on this Bombers team. At least the past few years, I've been pretty consistent picking either side on them. I just don't think this is the appropriate time. It's hard. I don't want to. This is these Taylor Cornelius bets at plus 14 a few years ago. Backing Chris Streveler with your money is a tough thing to do. So I am going to wait for a 3 to pop up. I've seen it kind of at like a little bit juiced at some books. So 2.5, I don't really like. But hey, if it sticks around there, I'm going to have to force myself to eat it and take the Bombers basically with any points. But I think it's going to trend to 3 just based on the overreaction to the Lions beating up the Edmonton Elks on opening day, which they've been doing that for years. So there's nothing to kind of overreact to from if you're looking at it objectively.
The first
I'm
half,
shocked at this.
You could react to, you know.
Well, yeah, they blew a bunch of short yardage, which just get a fullback in there and do that. Like you can't count on that to. You can't count on going. What do they go 0 for 3 in short yardage in the first half? You can't count on that happening every week. They'll figure it out. My friend and I said you need to get like a minute bowl or like an 8-foot guy to just reach it over. With the guys like the defense is a yard off the ball. How can you not get 1 yard with basic momentum? So, yeah, I don't know. Everybody seems to be pretty high on these Lions. I just kind of be careful. Like remember they played the Elks. We told you the Elks are terrible. They're still terrible. And I wouldn't read too much into it. You're going into Winnipeg, who's rested, and you're on a short week against. I still have Winnipeg, the top team in the league. I don't know if you were throwing shade on the CFL for having them too. I got them 1. So it's one thing where me and the official league websites might actually agree on.
No, I was saying that I saw videos before where they were lower. So I was kind of happy to see them at 2 or higher. I 2 or 1 is fine with me. I mean, I can already I can tell you who they had number 1. It was Saskatchewan because they beat the Redblacks. But that's for a whole different story. I think Bobby. Look, overall, we talk about overreaction, but I don't even know as much if this is an overreaction bet, or if it's just the bet on the team with the injured, or in this case, suspended quarterback. And that's what this is. This is the bet on the team with the suspended quarterback. That's really what it is. I mean, it's not about the overreaction. It's not about the BC Lions beating the Edmonton Elks and, putting up a handful of points on the Edmonton Elks, because to your point and what you've been saying to me on our last 5 shows dating back to last year, and what you said to me at the start of last year, for some reason, the books and the CFL just want to convince us the Elks are getting better. They're not. So we'll see what happens. So at the end of the day, how much do we write into about BC beating them? Well, not much, I guess. But I will say this. Winnipeg lost a couple pass rushers, but at the end of the day, a lot of websites had BC's pass protection ranked as one of the lowest in the league. You just talked about their offensive line, so we'll see that can happen. And one thing I've noticed, to talk about the fact that, yeah, sure, a lot of stuff about Streveler, but the week 1 bye. In years past, I've made the mistake of wanting to attack those teams and bet against them. And I thought to myself, it's better to bet on the team that has game experience, because you can't replicate gameplay in practice. At the end of the day, in the CFL, teams that have done well over the last handful of years has actually been the team with the most practice. More practice time, get to review tape. They get to see what BC did. Of course, as I mentioned, you got Buck Pierce coming into town. So look, I like the Winnipeg side just like yourself. Of course, as we're always, when we bet a number like this, you do sprinkle the money line. I wouldn't talk anybody out of a Winnipeg Blue Bombers team total as well, though, because look, Nate Rourke's going to move the ball. The offensive weapons are going to do well. But if we saw the Edmonton Elks putting up some points on them, I think Winnipeg's going to move the chains as well. And one thing in the CFL is, and we saw what Drew Brown did to start the week last week against Saskatchewan. Bobby, was he making any huge throws? It didn't seem like it. It was just like 5 yard after 15 yard after 10 yard. And all of a sudden he marched the field. And I was like, holy shit, my Riders first half bet is in trouble because the Redblacks are up 7-0. That's an overreaction. But so I think that one thing about Strevler that I like is that he doesn't really take a lot of chances. So that's one thing that you can say is if that's the biggest compliment I can give him, that's a pretty bad thing, I guess. But Strevler will make the right decision. And, I think that obviously he's strong enough that I don't think if he gets tackled, he'll throw the ball away or fumble it. I can trust him to take care of the ball. So I'll look towards that. I'll take the Bombers plus the points here. I am curious to see where it goes. You and I both know that the betting public will say, oh, no Collaros. Well, I know that guy's name. He's not playing. Oh, we'll bet against them. So we'll see where the number moves. But as of right now, I'm on the same pick as you. I do lean towards the Bombers. Let's not forget about your MOP bet either. I got to keep giving you credit on that one. I mean, I'm curious how much they're going to want to run the ball, this team. And also just in general, if they can keep the ball out of Rourke's hands and just kind of get that home crowd into it, it can really benefit Winnipeg.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right on this. Like it's it's a little bit overreaction to the Lions on week 1, but yeah, this is overreacting to Collaros to Strevler. So look, we've got 2 people already back in Chris Strevler.
Mark it down. Well, the funny thing is, I'd love to know what Chris Strevler's personal ATS record is, because I bet you it's not bad as far as CFL overreactions, considering every game he's in, he's a backup, and they're getting a different number. And that's one thing, Bobby, not to spend too much time on the first game, but every time he's in there, it's the same situation, right? Last year, Winnipeg had a tough start. It's been very clear. All the coaches' quotes I have in my monitor to the left talking about how they want to have a better start to their season. Well, ATS-wise, though, like you said, they were laying 7.5 to start the season, 5.5, 6.5. This is a spot where they're underdogs. It's a bit different starting the season off from our betting perspectives when they're underdogs versus, hey, we're not just asking you guys to win. We're asking you to put up a win by a touchdown. It's a bit different from what we're asking of this Winnipeg team. So look forward to tracking this, but I would tell people to get it on the 2.5. Wait, if you want to shop around, get a 3, or wait to see if that 3 is there. But I have no issue with the 2.5. So we'll see what happens. All right, Bobby, really quick, I just want to mention this. First of all, I will mention, guys, follow Bobby on X at Mr. Surrey Jack. He's tweeting some hot takes. He's tweeting out his picks, so don't miss those as well. He tries to make you laugh with that dry humor, and I love it. For me, guys, the promo for this week is CFL 39. CFL 39 at my homepage, wt.buzz/AM. That's going to knock $39 off the 30-day CFL pass. We'll get you 30 days of all my plays across the sport. So regular price is $139 for a month. Use that promo code CFL39, knock off $39, and get 1 month of CFL plays for $100. And as I always say, and I know Bobby agrees with me on this, it's a sport where you don't want to be just getting daily plays. You want to be getting the best number possible. There's a play I released about 4 hours ago, and we're already moved by a hook, maybe even more. So make sure you guys get involved. Use that promo code CFL39 and get the best number you possibly can in all of my plays. All right, game 2, Alouettes and Redblacks. This one's interesting. Look, we talked about it last week. The Alouettes, preseason, not that great. Davis Alexander, preseason, not that great. Well, how about that for the defense, for Davis Alexander? Tyson Philpott should have been on everybody's betting cards as far as anytime touchdown scores. Montreal looked pretty strong. Ottawa 7-1-1 at home last week. Last week I mentioned that to you, and you said, well, I don't really care about some of those wins that they had here. I'm curious your thoughts. You and I haven't talked about this game. What do you think about this number for Ottawa?
Well, let's start with the other thing we mentioned last week was the wild start, the wildest coaching matchup to start the season. Yeah, Bob Dice against Corey Mace. with a little bit of Rick Campbell sprinkled in behind Bob Dice there. We saw the Redblacks run out the clock on themselves because they didn't know how it worked. You saw the Redblacks try and challenge their own touchdown. They score a touchdown. He's got the challenge flag out. Whether you want to challenge that or not, you can't because it's an auto review. Didn't have enough players to start the game. To be fair, Toronto also didn't have enough players to start the game. And then I we were talking with Ian Cameron about this, watching the game, and like third and 20 something, game on the line. And what do? They throw the ball behind the line of scrimmage. And in the NFL, you're screwed. In the CFL, you're brilliant because you just kick it over the line of scrimmage and you got yourself a first down. Well, instead they just ran 5-6 yards and basically forfeited the game. So these are the Redblacks that we've been warning everybody about. And speaking of Ian, like he mentioned to us, like when in the Jason Moss, head coach of the Alouettes, he's 7-0 straight up against Bob Dice and the Redblacks, 6-1 against the spread. I can remember back in the Redblacks, one of the worst bets I've ever made in my whole entire life last summer. They couldn't even stay within single digits against the Alouettes. Like once they're behind, you can't do anything with them, right? The game's over. So the Redblacks are unbettable. I even tried to hedge a bit last week with them. Restricted my limit on them because they are so unbettable, and of course they didn't come through for me. So you've got all that, just basically the overall high level stuff working against them, and now you've got Drew Brown, who is banged up. He didn't throw first team reps in practice yesterday. You got a potential of Matthew Schultz starting at quarterback for them. He hasn't won a start since September of 2023. He's kind of in that Strevel or Arbuckle tier. I'd assume practice happened today. It's supposed to, but I can't find any information on even what time it was. Nobody cares. Nobody was there to report on it. So you just got to wait for the team to submit their info to CFL.ca. And if Drew Brown isn't playing this week, this is an auto bet on the Alouettes. Right now, where the line is, like as crazy as it sounds, I kind of agree with it, with what is Ottawa's slight favorite. I think the line's kind of moving towards Montreal. Basically a pick 'em right now. So I don't really want to get involved with that. But if you have Matthew Schultz playing instead of Drew Brown, you got to be on the Alouettes.
A lot to unfold from this. First of all, it gets me off track when I start laughing about your Bob Dice dismantling. But yeah, that game was a headache to watch. I ended up being. It was funny because I had the first half bet, as I keep saying, but then I kept on forgetting. Like, holy shit, man! Like, you need to make sure they win for your parlay. So I was like, I'm not gonna lie, I did toss it. Like, I changed the channel. My girlfriend wanted to watch one of our shows together. I'm like, yeah, I won my first half bet. Saskatchewan's not going to lose this game. And then I see you and Ian Cameron texting me saying, like, hey, this game's getting pretty close here. And I'm like, wait, what's going on? Like, they were
getting close, but it was never a doubt. Ottawa can't come back and win a game. So you were right to change the channel.
I'm watching some TV series. I'm like half on my phone and half there. I'm like, are you serious? Ottawa might win this. But yeah, look, two things that we were right about Ottawa is that, number one, their offensive line was going to make Drew Brown scramble a little bit. But number two, they were going to have some offensive weapons. I mean, this team is dangerous. This team has several receivers that could be top guys on a lot of teams. It's just a matter of if their defense is going to be enough to hold on to them or if their offensive line is going to be able to hold up. That's really the question. So when I first saw this number, my instant response was like, you know what? If this number is what it is like this, and they're showing that respect to Ottawa after the game Montreal had last week, give me the over. And I'm going to say the same thing I said last week, despite the Montreal and Toronto game not getting over the total. Montreal games can go over the total because of defensive plays, pick sixes, strip sacks, a lot of interceptions in the CFL. They don't just pick it off and then get tackled. It's a bigger field. You get an interception, you elevate like 20 or 30 yards, it seems like. And we've seen it with most interceptions so far throughout this season in just 1 week. So kind of just looking at things, looking at the Redblacks, I mean, looking at some of the performers even, it's really impressive to look at what some of these guys did. Drew Brown, 413 passing yards. You can take that for what it is, because I'm a big fan of Saskatchewan's run defense, and Ottawa just wasn't able to run the ball. So everything they pretty much did successfully was the passing game. But again, when you have all those weapons, it's hard to really blame them for doing that there. Taking a look at some of these quotes, though, from Montreal. I mean, our preparation in training camp, we really emphasized turnovers, making plays on defense, taking the ball away from the opponent. Something we didn't do last year till the end. We didn't have crazy turnover games. I mean, head coach Moss, that's going to be what we do. We're going to try and run the ball on everybody every single week. We want to dominate the line of scrimmage, get our backs involved. I mean, to me, when I look at it, this team, Bobby, they don't need Davis Alexander to be a hero. That's the big difference, is that he's a new quarterback not in the system, but as far as being a starting quarterback, they don't need him to be a hero. When you have a defense and special teams, and I always talk about how important special teams is in the CFL, they don't need him to be a hero because they have so many great players all around everywhere. And, what's funny is the Alouettes actually lost a handful of players on the defensive line. I mean, everything looked pretty great from what I saw. So, I'm undecided as far as decide if I'll get involved, but I still like that over. I might even take a look at a team total. I realize that many books that people should be able to get down on, FanDuel, DraftKings, and even hopefully some of the Vegas books, people can bet those team totals, because both of the games that didn't go over last week, if you just took the favorite and their team total over, well, you had success. So team totals are always a way to attack certain things like that. And I think this is a game I like the over with. The Redblacks are going to be a fun team to watch this year, Bobby. And a lot of it's to do with Dice's decisions, but a lot of it is to do with their talent. I mean, look at their receiving core. You add Geno Lewis to that, they do have talent out there.
Yeah, your Drew Brown's in the pocket, and his fourth option is Dom Rhymes, which is he was 100 or 1,000-yard receiver for the past couple of years before, in and out of injuries, right? So they've definitely got a great offense. They finally have they've stopped starting a wide receiver at running back. And hey, look, that guy went for like 112 yards of receiving yards too. So they definitely have all the weapons. But you can only, it's the decision making that just kills them. So remember, we made a rule that we would not be betting full units on this Ottawa team. So I think the most important thing is wait for somebody. I thought my app was frozen here just because nothing's refreshing. I have about 120, 150 CFL kind of people that I follow, and nobody's saying anything, and it's wild because there's Ottawa practicing, Toronto practicing. Nobody knows who's starting quarterback, and nobody in the province of Ontario cares about any team other than Hamilton. So that's what it's coming across like. So Drew Brown, he's going to be a good quarterback, and Alexander's on that way too, right? So these are kind of the two younger guys in the league. You got your guys that are pushing 40, and then you got these guys with Nathan Rourke, right? So I just would be careful. I don't know if Matthew Schultz could work with that offense as well as Drew Brown can. So he got hit pretty hard. He was limping around most of that fourth quarter. So we'll see if he's getting more involved on the second day of practice today when that comes out.
It's what makes the CFL fun, but also makes it annoying to bet on. We feel like we have edges with our work we put in, but also we're dying to get some info out there that we just don't see out there. Just the numbers I was looking for here from Ottawa. Justin Hardy, 8 catches, 133 yards, 1 touchdown. Braylon Addison, 8 catches, 112 yards. Standback with a touchdown. Geno Lewis, touchdown, extending his streak to 9 consecutive games. Impressive. So final thoughts for me. Look, undecided, but I'll probably look towards the over. We'll see what can happen, but that game to me is, I think, going to be fun to watch. I can't see that one being low scoring. It's a lot of playmakers out there on the field. That might be one that I look towards for the over so far. All right, next one here. Stampeders at Argos. Okay, I'm just going to say this, because this you can tell me if I'm being a salty guy that lost his money or not. Feel free to stop me, because based on some of the numbers I looked at, and if I go over some of the game recap stuff here, it looks to me like there were, I don't know, like 14 points, like something like that created by just special teams. I mean, a lot of it was special teams. A lot of it was poor defense. When I look at coaches' quotes, a lot of it I see is self-inflicted wounds by Hamilton. When you look at a team that was quarterbacked by Vernon Adams Jr., let's ask ourselves how many touchdowns he threw for last week.
0.
How many did he throw for? 0. I mean, it's not like and you talk about smart play VA and not big play VA. The guy had 2 interceptions. You know, this is a guy that got a chance to look good against Hamilton in week 1. You know, did he play the Elks? Maybe not, but he got a chance. And I thought if it was a race to 30, Hamilton would win that. Turns out it was a race to way more than 30, and Calgary was able to win it. But to me, Toronto, I mean, they weren't ranked by most websites, you know, 9th, 8th, or 7th in the league in most defensive statistical categories. You know, Calgary were. And so when I look at Toronto and I look at, it can't get much worse from the offensive line standpoint. I think even if it's Kelly or if it's Arbuckle, it can't get much worse from there. This is a home spot. The 3.5 to me is something I kind of want to get involved in, but I got a feeling that I might even get a better number. So I'm curious to see what you think, but I'm actually interested in Toronto as well. It's something that when I look at the weapons that they have, I'm still confident in some of the offensive players that they have. I just think that for Calgary overall, you know, they might not be able to produce the same way and get some of the stuff done. I mean, Hamilton's special teams defense is so brutal. Any punt returner is going to get 25, 30 yards on them. It's made clear. But we'll see if that can happen again. Maybe I was just blown off some steam there, Bobby, but you tell me, a 3.5 here for Toronto after getting smoked last week against Montreal. What do you think?
Yeah, like I was definitely proven, at least in the first half, was proven wrong on that smart play VA stuff. He had one throw he definitely wanted back that was wide open, like threw it right into Katsantona's hands. The other was ticked on when he threw, but yeah, not a great game for him, but they were able to manage the ball. They were able to get it downfield on those guys. So going into Toronto though, like this looks like based on what we saw last week, like this has to be a Chad Kelly line.
Yeah.
And based on what I've heard, like I don't think it should be, because like he wasn't too active last week in practice. A couple of guys that I do pay attention to were kind of indicating that he might not be back for this week. But unfortunately, like this is the same situation. Like the Argos had a practice 4 hours ago, and nobody was there to report if it actually happened. I still have a post on X out right now. Any kid in the Toronto area want to make $20, go tell me who's throwing the football at Argos practice. Like these Argos got.
Make it
yeah. Well, hey, like at this point, it's if you can get ahead of any line move, like it's worth it. The limits are high enough now where it's worth your while. So, like the Argos last week, they looked like a team that got picked apart in the offseason, right? Like Arbuckle looked the way he usually does, which like he's serviceable, but like he wasn't the Grey Cup MOP performance like he had in November. I'd expect the Argos to kind of be contenders later on in the year once Kelly's back, probably in the next few weeks. But this defense, this O-line kind of needs to get used to each other. Like they got massacred in the offseason. So, but they've done this before, right? They always manage to find players to fill spots. So I'm not too worried about them. And honestly, like if you got a team like the Redblacks and the Ticats didn't look that great either in your division, you can just kind of play for that second spot in the East and take it from there, like exactly like they did last year. So Toronto can't really stop anything right now. Like I said, VA was able to move the ball. He didn't have touchdowns, but he had some pretty good numbers out there. The Argos couldn't stop Davis Alexander. I don't think it's controversial to say that VA is better than Davis Alexander. So again, like this line makes sense to me if Chad Kelly's starting. I still think the Argos should be favored, even though they had a pretty bad performance last week. But But if he's not taking the first team reps, or if he didn't take the first team reps 4 hours ago, we still haven't heard anything on it, then I think Calgary should be the favorite, even on the road here.
Wow. Interesting. So we'll see what ends up happening. It's unfortunate we have to wait. We have lines at multiple books, but we have a lack of information as far as, starting info and things like that. So I'm curious to see what happens here. I mean, Montreal was just dominant. Montreal was dominant in that game last week. At Toronto, they should have just, packed their bags, gone out to dinner, and just not even showed up for the second half. That game was over, it seemed like. So really interesting to see what happens. Stampeders' number was 6.5 for their over-under on win total. If they can get to 2 in the first 2 weeks, thanks for playing for anybody that recommended the under like myself. So we'll see what ends up happening in that one. I mentioned the team totals last segment with the Alouettes and Redblacks. I'll tell you what, I think that if there's a way to look at it, if your book does offer the team totals, I think that could be the way of going about Argos. Because Stamps, they proved, I mean, obviously they got a quarterback that's talented. They got a running back that will make you pay as well. But I think the Argos are going to put some points on the board. They got Daniels, they got multiple guys that can make plays. Their running game actually didn't look too bad last week for what it's worth. For how much they were down. They were barely able to run the ball, but at the start they were actually, making plays. I just think that compared to Montreal, I mean, what did they end up getting? Like 30, 40 yards? They had a handful of runs that worked out, and then they had to stop running the ball because they found themselves down like 17 points. So I'm curious to see what happens here, but if you can get a pretty good number on the Argos team total, I would pull the trigger on that because Stamps are going to prove they have a good offense. But this is our second chance to see what their defense can do. And I think if you're a Stampeders fan or backer, you just don't want to be blinded by the fact that they played the Ticats in week 1. Those are the Ticats that I backed. But we're going to find out how much they looked good because they were playing the Ticats or how much they just are, an improved team or a better team. We'll see what ends up happening here. But Bobby, as you always say, the difference between a QB1 and a QB2 in the CFL, it's a pretty good difference. The only difference is sometimes in certain games, like with Strevler, we're getting value in the marketplace. So we'll see what ends up happening in that one. I think that's one where you got to follow us on social media. Keep your eyes peeled and make sure you're following up for some information. All right. Speaking of overreaction week, so Roughriders versus Ticats. As I mentioned to you, CFL power rankings, they had Saskatchewan ranked number 1. After week 1 of beating the Ottawa Redblacks. They are now -1 or -3.5, -164, 50.5 being the total here. Looking at this one here, and obviously Saskatchewan, it ended up getting a little bit sweaty near the end, but they got the job done against the Redblacks. They're 1-0, but the big story behind this game are the injuries. Running back AJ Ouellette, unknown exactly what's going on, but he took a really, really hard hit. He was a centerpiece, of their offense. He's a big piece as far as their running game guys, and he gets injured. So they go ahead and sign Kadeem Carey, which signals that it's a really important or really significant injury to AJ Ouellette, or they wouldn't have gone out and scrambled and picked up another running back. Keon Schaefer-Baker gets injured. Canadian receiver, really talented threat on offense, that he gets injured as well. Roland Milligan Jr., he gets injured. Huge part of the secondary for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. His absence could help out some of the receivers like Kenny Lawler for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Potential loss of some of these guys could make a difference. But also, Saskatchewan's defense looked pretty good against Ottawa. After the first quarter and a bit, the defense really settled in. That defense overall, I think, is what's going to be huge for them throughout the year. It's just a matter of how much we really want to put money on this team with how banged up they are. So we'll see what ends up happening with that one. I'll tell you, most of the time, I'm going to be interested in taking overs when it comes to Hamilton Tiger Cats games. But I wouldn't be shocked to see this one at 50.5 go under the total, guys, with, so many injuries for Saskatchewan, with Hamilton probably wanting to put a little bit more of an emphasis on running the ball, controlling the clock a little bit more. Bo Levi Mitchell looked pretty good, but I mean, their special teams defense wasn't great. Their secondary didn't look all that great. We saw their O-line kind of face some problems. So I think this is a team that will want to control the clock, move the chains, and keep things simple. The home crowd, I'd say, is one of the best, one up there, passionate fans out there in Hamilton. Wouldn't be shocked to see them get the job done. The 4.5 was there. 3.5 is still here at some spots. Hopefully by the time you guys are seeing this video posted across most networks, you can still get 3 in the hook. But if you want Hamilton, I would get them now. I think for props wise, I would probably end up looking at some Trevor Harris, passing attempts, pass completions, if you can get those, pass yardage, because for a team that loves to run the ball, I'm not sure they're going to be able to run the ball as much as they'd like to. So, Tim Hortons Field recognized as one of the more challenging venues for visiting teams. So we'll see what ends up happening here. But Bo Levi Mitchell, 304 yards and a touchdown without an interception was huge. The fact that he was able to put up those numbers, the fact that for a guy that did struggle with interceptions early last year, was able to put up 300 plus yards with no interception is good to see. Kenny Lawler, immediate impact as a Hamilton Ticat, 6 receptions, 87 yards and a touchdown. That was good to see. Tim White, he's always there. And the rookie Isaiah Wooden looked pretty strong with a 105-yard kickoff return touchdown in week 1. That should be something that we should look at as well for a guy to be really dangerous for them. So overall, I think I'd look towards potential for the under here. If you want Hamilton, I would jump on that one as fast as you can. And I will say this, the home opener, the first game of the year last year for Hamilton, they lost to Saskatchewan. So this isn't just a bounce back spot for them. This is also a revenge spot for them. So curious to see what the offensive adjustments are. Obviously, they gave up so many points in week 1, this Hamilton team. Saskatchewan looked like one of the best teams in the league, if not the best out the gate. So we'll see what can really happen here. But 31 points for Saskatchewan in week 1. We'll see what ends up happening. As far as they allowed 26, Hamilton allowed 38. They put up 26 points, total yards, 304 passing, 47 rushing. They're going to want to run the ball a hell of a lot more. But yeah, those are my thoughts, guys. And we'll try and get Bobby back here. He lost his internet. We got to get him back to get his thoughts on this one. I'll just mention once again, guys, we're going to have a really big week here. Week 2 has always been a profitable week. I got some sides, some halves, some totals I like here, some props that will get sent out, or at least to my social media following. You guys can use the promo code CFL39, 30 days, all CFL picks for $100. You're going to save $39. That's the promo code name, CFL39. And for me at Wager Talk right now, it's been a week-by-week process. We're not on any crazy streaks. We're collecting units every single week. We're at the top of the 5, I think 6th or 7th at Wager Talk in 2025 as far as all sports action, plus 7 units year-to-date with the CFL due to that success with the preseason. Yesterday, or last week, it was a graded 2-2. We're going to have a big week, though. Looking forward to it. Promo CFL39, 30 days, all CFL picks. $100 at wt.buzz/am. All right. Trying to get Bobby back here, guys. We'll see what his thoughts are. But yeah, that's going to be it here. Any questions, feel free to drop them. We'll get to those. But overall, as far as these games are concerned, we're starting to see the odds be fully dropped. And that's going to be it. As far as our breakdowns, we'll get Bobby's quick thoughts here. Saskatchewan, Hamilton, 4.5 was the early number at FanDuel, but as most books popped up everywhere, it was 3.5 or now 3 at some spots. How do you approach this one?
Hey, sorry, yeah, Ottawa released a practice report and everything just went to shit over here. So it looks like Drew Brown is still limited, by the way. So I would just caution any and just another reason not to bet on Ottawa. But in terms of this last game here, I don't know if you mentioned any of the Drake curse that continued to hit the Riders. But they did lose like Milligan last game, best player in the league, best defensive player in the league at least. Lost their starting running back, lost another wide receiver. So they have some cluster injuries there, and they're still dealing with the O-line problems as well, right? So it should be okay at running back. I just saw like Kadeem Carey's not even on the roster right now. He's just put to the practice roster. Looks like Olet will start. Milligan's back at practice, but like even if the Riders start the same team that they did last week, are they still laying 3 points on the road right now? So I think this is an overreaction for Saskatchewan and to Hamilton too. That Hamilton game, if they played any longer, I don't think Calgary holds on to win, right? So that game was much more of a sweat than it should have been given the score after the third quarter. So I don't see how Hamilton goes from like what were they were just 3 on plus 3 on the road in Calgary, and now they're laying or they're giving up. They're getting 3.5 at home, right? So is there 6-7 point difference between Saskatchewan and Calgary? Like, would you lay 9 or 10 if this game was in Saskatchewan? Probably not, right? So I haven't seen many Riders fans feeling too good after that first win of the year. I think they got lucky. They were playing Ottawa. They can't come back and win a game if they're down. So I think the Riders are still a top team in the league, but this disparity from like top to bottom here isn't as big as it usually is. So I like the Ticats. I'm assuming you're on them as well, just because you're still hating on Calgary and still bitter about. You still think you're on the right side last week, so I'll join you on the Ticats this week for sure. And I like this number, like all the way down to 2, probably. Like it's moving from the 4.5 open, but even if you can take any numbers with these guys, I don't think Saskatchewan should be laying more than a point or to be close to pick in this game. And if I was making the line.
Well, I much prefer to be on Hamilton when I'm getting a few points than taking the money line. I'll put it at that, and I'm hoping to get more spots throughout the season with that. But both of us looking towards Hamilton here, and we'll see what ends up happening. But, sometimes you want to bet on the injured team, but at the end of the day, we're not getting enough value, I think, to bet on that team like we are with the suspended Zach Collaros Winnipeg Blue Bombers getting 2.5 with that team. All right, guys, long show today, but thanks a lot for watching. As always, if you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button or comment below. It really does help us out. If you're watching on X, show us some love and let us know who you are betting this week. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next week on the CFL Betting Blueprint.